Hey yo, what's going on, everybody? I'm Joom, and welcome back to Shotmakers. Yeah, I said it. Welcome back. You don't know how happy I am to be able to say those words. Shotmakers lived in my head for nearly a decade as a passion project, something I was eager to draft and scratch, draft and scratch, draft and scratch. But finally, you're here. I'm here. We here, baby. Welcome to Shotmakers. On this very first episode of Shotmakers, I'm here to answer the most important question. That is, what exactly is a shot maker? Not only that, I'm here to give a quick little glimpse into what's going on in these NBA playoffs. And if you've been watching, they've been pretty hectic so far. But to answer the important question, what is a shot maker? Google defines shot maker as someone who is able to make a shot. Simple put, they did their stuff. That really is it. The only thing I'd add on to that is that a shot maker is someone who can create a shot for themselves, right? Create the opportunity for a shot for themselves, take that shot and also make that shot, regardless of the varying difficulties. In other words, someone who's able to create an opportunity for themselves to strategize and plan an opportunity, but then also execute that opportunity. So to me, that sounds like shot making happens not just in basketball, but also in soccer, also in hockey, also in golf. Any sport that requires you to aim at a goal, it's a shot making sport. But not only that, I also think it applies to life and business. If you're able to strategize a plan, create a plan, strategize a plan, and then actually execute the plan, you, my friend, might be a shot maker. So if that's you, why don't you go ahead and pat yourself on the back? But none of that matters. This is a hoops show. This is a hoop podcast. So if it don't got nothing to do with hoops and it don't got nothing to do with basketball shot making, we can throw it all out the window. And basketball has afforded us a plethora of hoopers. You got your MJs, your LeBrons, your Kobe's, your Stephs, your Diana Taurasi, your Caitlin Clarks, your Asia Wilsons, your Enrique. You name it. The list can go on and on. And that's what shot making is. Or that's what basketball is, should I say. Basketball is a shot making sport. The only way to win in the game of basketball is to make more shots than your opponent. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to get into the details about who the best shot makers are. We're going to talk about who the worst shot makers are. But we're not just staying there. We do want to talk about the ins and outs of the games. We want to cover these games. We want to make sure that you are well aware and well fed about what is happening in a game of basketball. That leads me to our very first segment, which is Shot Maker of the Day. I'm going to say Shot Maker a lot. I just want you to get that through your head so far. I'm going to say Shot Makers a lot. It's in my head, it's embedded in my head, and it might end up also being embedded in your head. And I don't think that's such a bad thing. You feel me? The shot maker of the day is a moment for me to highlight a player, past or present, who either had a really incredible night some years ago or is having a really incredible stretch right now. That I think we should be talking about. And the very first SOD, shot maker of the day, aka SOD, is Ty Jerome of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Ty Jerome on Sunday night faced off against my Miami Heat. I said my Miami Heat, and I'll explain more about that later. And he cooked us. Homeboy showed his pepper, as my Nigerians could say. Homeboy cooked us. Ty Jerome put up 16 points in the fourth quarter in a game that got a little close. It wasn't close the entire way, but the Heat were able to kind of climb back into it, make it an 8-point game at some point. And Ty Jerome went off in the fourth quarter, scoring 16 points, 16 out of 28 points, 6 of 7 from the field, 3 of 3 from three, and really cooked us. None of our defenders could stay in front of him. He cooked our best scorer, Tyler Hero. He took that Ty name for real. And yeah, he showed his stuff. He didn't have as stellar as a game in game two, but the Cleveland Cavaliers still steamrolled the Heat at some point. So Ty Jerome ends up being our SOD of the day. And what was super cool to see with Ty Jerome is that though he happens to be a catch and shoot player a lot of times, he was able to kind of diversify himself and show off the ball handle, show off the shot making, to shot creation ability. And that's what really helped the Cavaliers win that first game. And that leads us into our final part of today's episode, and that's the playoffs. The playoffs kicked off on Saturday following the play-in tournament that saw the Golden State Warriors, the Memphis Grizzlies become the 7th and 8th seed in the West, and the Orlando Magic and the Miami Heat become the 7th and 8th seed in the East. Meaning the Grizzlies would see the Oklahoma City Thunder in the first round as the 1 and 8 seed face off, and my Miami Heat would face off against the Cleveland Cavaliers, who were the 1 seed. The one thing that's been constant is that the 1 seeds in both conferences have been utterly dominant, and they're for real. The Thunder are playing against the Grizzlies and have smacked the Grizzlies. In fact, they're grilling Grizzly booty right now. In game one against the Grizzlies, they beat them by 51 points. That's almost an NBA playoff record. Then in game two, they also did what they had to do and really smacked them around. It's not a close series, and to be honest with you, that's what you kind of expect with one seeds going against eight seeds that had to get out of the play-in to get there. But I don't know if we expected this type of spanking. The Thunder are doing what they gotta do, and they demand our respect and our attention. And on the other side, the Cavaliers are doing very similar stuff to my Miami Heat. The Heat were the 10th seed in the East. They had to beat the Bulls and the Hawks to get into the playoffs. And they're really not supposed to be here. In fact, let me give you a secret. I really don't want them there. We have this passion for failing upwards. We or succeeding to failure. Because our success happens to be fool's gold, right? When we do slightly well, that leaves and breeds room for contentment for our ownership and management. So we don't ever really do anything, and that's been a constant thing for the Heat. However, we're facing off against the Cavaliers, who at some point in the season were on a 70-win pace. Yet, the league, media, fans, so many folks did not give them their credit. And I think what they're showing so far in these first two games against the Miami Heat is that, hey, look, we're for real. We have everything that you need. I just talked about Ty Jerome. He's coming off the bench for those guys. He's not their one, he's not their two, he's not their three, and he probably isn't their fourth best player. He's coming off the bench. And alongside him off the bench is DeAndre Hunter, who's also a really great 3-and-D guy. I haven't even talked about their lead guys yet, right? Their Donovan Mitchells, their Darius Garlands, their Evan Mobleys, even their Jarrett Allens. The Cavaliers team is not only loaded, but they're smart. They play defense. And they've been as good as they've been from the jump. They're as good as they say they are. And in my opinion, that's as good as to possibly get to the NBA Finals. We'll see if that happens, but I think that the Thunder and the Cavaliers demand our respect, and we should do it. I look at the Thunder as the NBA's Bat family. If you're familiar with DC comic books, Batman has a family. I pause there because the story of Batman starts with him not having a family. Eventually, he gets a family. That's not important. Batman has a family. Right under Batman, he has Robins. He also has Alfred, a loyal butler. He has a whole lot of folks who work alongside him to, bring justice to Gotham. To me, Shai is Batman. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's probably going to win MVP this year, is Batman. He's the frontman for the Thunder. He's leading that band. And under him, he has reliable, trustworthy sidekicks. And Jalen Williams, otherwise known as J-Dub, or Chet Holmgren, right? This 7-foot plus paint beast who can also step out and shoot a three. Either way you go, there's a very solid and trustworthy Robin right there. Not only that, you have a whole lot of other guys, your Batgirls, your Batwomen, your Batwings, your Oracles, however you spin it. That Thunder team is deep, they're well coached, and they know what they're doing, and they also really demand our attention and respect. It was baffling to me throughout this entire year how folks kind of tried to discredit these guys because maybe, I don't know. Like, there really wasn't actual dialogue as far as why we shouldn't have taken the Thunder seriously. Their youth, but they were kind of in this position last year where they were dominating the West. Not only did they dominate the West this year, but they also annihilated the East. They finished their record against the East nearly 30-1. They might have actually got to 30-1, which would have been an NBA record. That's ridiculous. We should be paying a little bit more attention to them. In fact, they are my pick to make it and win the NBA championship this year. Spoiler alert. The second thing I paid attention to was that we got some really good series in the West. Tonight, the Rockets actually beat the Warriors in Game 2, tying up that series. So every series in the West, except for the Thunder and Grizzlies series, is tied 1-1. That's important to know because the only guarantee I believe in the West right now is that the Thunder will be in the Western Conference Finals. We don't know who's going to win that Nuggets and Clippers series. We don't know who's going to win that Lakers and Wolves series. And the Rockets and Warriors series just got a little shaky because we don't know how long Jimmy Butler might be out for. Jimmy Butler sustained an injury tonight, and the Warriors kind of crumbled as soon as he went out. They did not look good. They didn't have any constant motion going on. They didn't have any consistency going on, despite Steph trying his best to keep them afloat. That gets really scary for the Warriors. We might be looking at a second round series that doesn't have the Warriors, that may not have LeBron in it, and we already know the Suns and Kevin Durant aren't in there. So I think that's appealing. I think that's really interesting to see. I'm excited to see what happens in that Nuggets and Clippers series, which in my opinion is going to end up as the best series this first round of the playoffs. The Nuggets and Clippers are similarly matched up. Nuggets feature Nikola Jokic, who is the best player in the league, has been the best player for the last couple years, and somehow, someway, despite averaging a 30-point triple double, is probably going to be snubbed for MVP. Ridiculous. But then on the other side, the Clippers have a recharged Kawhi Leonard and James Harden, who's playing masterfully and skillfully at his big age. Kawhi in that last game against the Nuggets, after the Clippers lost game one in overtime, right, through some heroics by Russell Westbrook, Kawhi in game two at some point had 30 points with only one missed shot. The boy good. The boy is a robot, and he's really good. The boy gets to the stuff. And I think that's been really incredible to see. I absolutely think that series is going to go 7. I don't know who to really pick there. I think my heart is saying Nuggets, my mind is saying Clippers, but I'm excited to see that play out. The Lakers and the Timberwolves series is interesting because I think it's just going to be constant haymakers. The Timberwolves hit first and had the Lakers on the ropes in game one, beat them by nearly 20. And then in game two, the Lakers gave it back to them. Another haymaker. I think that series is going to continue to exchange haymakers, and I'm expecting the Lakers to pull through because they have a lot more star power than the Timberwolves. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Timberwolves finally boggle down and focus and lock in and focus, because I do think they have the talent and the depth to beat the Lakers. It's just a matter of execution there. The final thing of note for me is, while the West has 3 out of 4 series tied up 1-1, the East only has 1 series that's tied up 1-1. Every other series is looking like a 2-0 situation, and possibly every other series could look like a sweep. The Celtics played the Magic and went up 2-0 against them tonight, despite the fact that Jason Tatum didn't play. The Pacers beat the Bucks yesterday, despite the fact that Damian Lillard finally came back. Now, I do think that the Bucks can have some type of say in that series, but it's looking really slim. Giannis is doing everything that he can do for the Bucks, and it's really not getting them anywhere. Those role players are old and just not good enough to really compete with the speed and the aggression that the Pacers got going on. And I think that the Pacers might really have their number in these playoffs. They had them last year as well. On the other side of things, that Knicks and Pistons series, it's looking pretty sweet. Game 1 went to the Knicks after a really close battle up until the end, where the Knicks were able to pull away on a 21-0 run. Shouldn't happen, probably won't happen again, but then Pistons got their lick back in Game 2. Now, I can't really call that series because going into it, I expected the Knicks to really get it together and be the vets, show the experience that they've had. However, there is too much inconsistent play from all of their guys. Jalen Brunson is putting up the points, but not really in a very masterful way. He's finding ways to articulate and get to the rim or get to the free throw line, but it's not necessarily doing what it's supposed to do. It's not something that gives you confidence that they can beat the Pistons, but then also beat the Celtics or the Cavs or whoever they'd have to play next. Karl-Anthony Towns had a really great game 1, but was held to abysmal 12 points in game 2. And then you just have inconsistencies all around the board. OG Anunoby happens to be the Knicks' best thing going for them right now, but it's just not going to be enough relying on him. On the other side, the Pistons are showing up. For one, most people didn't even expect them to be in these playoffs. Completely surprised and shut up everybody. Shout out Detroit basketball. The Pistons are cooking, and it's with a unique style of play that I don't know if the NBA is fully prepared for. But I'm excited to continue to see it. Cade is wheeling and dealing, but not only that, the defense, the aggression, the bully ball that they got going on, and then Malik Beasley being reliable from three. The Bucks could have really used him last year doing that, but he's here. He with Detroit. He doing himself. He's found himself a home there, and so that series happens to be the best series in the East right now. I do think that the Magic and the Celtic series is also pretty decent, but the Magic just don't have enough outside of Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. So I'm expecting sweeps throughout the East, except for that Pistons and Knicks series, which I think might should go to 7 just to give a little life to the East. Otherwise, the West got it, and I think that has been the thing to understand, the thing to know, the thing to embrace throughout this entire year, but also over like the last decade and a half. That the East continues to churn out or produce a mediocre product, and that sucks. That really sucks because all of the stars happen to be on the West. But the East should have and feature really gritty teams, teams that really don't like each other and should be filled with rivalries, teams going at each other's necks. But unfortunately, we don't really got that right now. And I do think that the Pistons, though, the Pistons might be ready for some of that. And yeah, that brings us to the conclusion of this very first episode of Shotmakers. I'm so happy you could join me. If you like what you heard, maybe you didn't, go ahead and like, share, comment, subscribe, and follow wherever you're listening to this or watching this. And peace out.